Greetings, welcome to my channel. This is EdenAmadora. I'm so glad you're here. Today we're going to talk about feminine archetypes and what archetype of woman are you? In the Divine Feminine Mystery School, which I am a teacher in, we have 13 archetypes of the Divine Feminine, and these are qualities of being that go cross-culturally throughout time and radiate into really famous goddesses that we've heard of. So those goddesses have clues for what kind of archetype are you as a woman. I'm going to share with you the 13 archetypes and for you to just feel what you most resonate with. The first archetype is the archetype of the Great Mother. The Great Mother teaches us how to surrender and receive. And if this is your kind of archetype as a woman, you are a nurturer. You are a caretaker. You are warm and embracing. You love feeding people. And the shadow of this archetype is that you can be over-responsible, over-caretaking, and you can neglect yourself at the cost of others. So really feel into if that is your archetype and your work to do, to come into balance, to be that loving, inviting nurturer without depleting yourself. The second archetype is the archetype of the goddess of compassion, like Kuan Yin, Tara, Mother Mary. This archetype will show you as a woman if you are very compassionate, forgiving, a listening ear, if you have a lot of empathy, and if you're able to pull people into your higher vibration and guide them through compassion, then this is your archetype as a woman. And the shadow or the danger of being in the unconscious part of this archetype is also codependence and kind of losing yourself in other people's energy and suffering. So true compassion will teach you how to keep your vibe high and stay grounded and centered to be with others, no matter what is going on for them. The third archetype of a woman that comes from the goddesses I work with is the archetype of the priestess. This is Mary Magdalene, Lady of the Lake. This is a woman who is very intuitive, in touch with her extrasensory channels of perception. This is the mystic, the seer beyond the veil. If you're this archetype of woman, you're getting signs and symbols from the universe very frequently. And the danger or the shadow of this archetype is if you get kind of lost in the symbolic universe. I'll do that again. The danger of this archetype or the shadow is if you get lost in the symbolic universe and feel a bit ungrounded or become isolated and lunar. These types are very cat-like, and sometimes cats are wonderful and sometimes they can be finicky and want to be all alone. So really feel into where you can come into balance and presence as a priestess archetype. The fourth archetype is the archetype of the creator, destroyer, preserver. This is best known as the goddess Kali Ma. Kali teaches us about the power of Shakti, fire, the fuel for creation as the creatrix. She also teaches us about what no longer serves and when to cut it out of your life. And lastly, what is true and everlasting and is meant to be preserved. If this is your archetype of a woman, you're not afraid of confrontation. You're a truth teller and you can set great boundaries. The shadow is anger that's unintegrated and reactivity with all that firepower. So coming into balance in the archetype of the creator destroyer is all about right use of power. You can use her as a guide if you resonate with this. The fifth archetype is the archetype of the muse. I'm wearing her color today. The magical muse archetype teaches us to play, to follow our inspiration and our joy, and to go towards levity, letting life be joyful and not getting too serious. The shadow of this archetype is scattered focus or procrastination, when we have so much creative energy flowing that we can't get stuff done. So if that's your archetype as a woman, you'll be served with daily practices and actually a little bit of structure for your muse energy to make it matter, to come into form, and to see your creativity manifest. The sixth archetype of the divine feminine, of you as a woman, if you resonate, is the Lady of Communion. The Lady of Communion is a badass. She gets stuff done because she is excellent at focusing, aligning, and empowering her visions. You can think of Artemis, the archer, shooting her arrows of intention towards her visions from the bow of surrender. And if this is your archetype, you're probably pretty balanced in your feminine and masculine essence, because we need that inner masculine to create the structure and have that energy to do and make things happen in the world. The shadow of this archetype can be that we're a little too much in our masculine, and we can get very much caught up in the material kind of manifestations and lose some of that feminine flow and sensitivity. So you can watch that and bring yourself back into balance. Practices that I have taught on, there's many videos about this, the inner marriage and balancing your masculine and feminine. The seventh archetype is the Goddess of Love. The Goddess of Love is well known cross-culturally and throughout time. You might have heard of her as Aphrodite, Venus, Inanna, Ishel. There's so many cultures, Lakshmi, for instance, in India, that revere this goddess. She's all about abundance, beauty, pleasure, and love, the open-hearted flow, the invitation, and the offering. And if this is your archetype as a woman, you are in your magnetic, juicy flow. You're constantly inviting and you feel abundant in your offerings. The Goddess of Love will also help you awaken through the senses. You're a sensory adept, not in spite of our senses, but through our senses. As this archetype of a woman, we can stay very present and awaken. If this is your archetype as a woman, you want to watch out for the shadow of the Goddess of Love, which can be competition and comparison, or that kind of manipulation with your beauty and your magnetism that can create havoc, like Aphrodite in the myths of old. So to come into balance, it is about alignment with heart and wisdom. Love and wisdom, the way to go. The eighth archetype of the divine feminine pantheon of goddesses that you might resonate with as your archetype of woman is the primal goddess. She doesn't care what people think of her. She is wild, untamed, and free. She's fully expressed in her sexuality, in her embodied creativity, and she knows from her instincts what's real. If this is your archetype, you may watch out for the shadow of the primal goddess, which can be a little bit rebellious, pushing the envelope and using some of that power to kind of stir things up in a way that creates drama and chaos for her. So as a primal goddess, once again, really resting back into, is this in wisdom? Even if I have the power to create wildly, is it the right time, right place, right situation? To be in that intuitive navigation. The next archetype is the archetype of the initiator. And really feel into this. I know there's some kick-ass women, CEOs, business women, real adventurous spirits that are really going to resonate with this one. This archetype of the initiator is all about alignment. I challenge, I align, I clarify. And the goddess Isis, known as the pruner, just cutting the crap and getting shit done. Excuse my language. But she knows what she wants and goes for it. And if this is your archetype, you're a go-getter and you're a truth teller. The shadow, however, could be impatience and irritation and a little bit of those more kind of masculine qualities of just like, out of my way and get shit done. So to be in your compassion, in your femininity, in balance with the sword and the chalice. Okay, the next archetype, the ninth archetype, is the wise woman. This is about the limitless light of Sophia's wisdom. In fact, the true meaning of crone is about the corona of light from the inner glow of wisdom light, Sophia's limitless light. And if this is your archetype, you are a wise woman. Even if you're young, you can still have that inner aura, that corona of light. And the wise woman knows that we're really not in a duality, polarity game after all. You can step out of black and white thinking, right and wrong judgments, and come into the heart of unity consciousness, which really coheres and brings others into your healing energy and your vibrant presence. So as a wise woman, you are a healer naturally through your very essence. This being said, if you're overly identified as a healer, that's the shadow, then the ego mind can really get caught up in that. So that's a danger. The other is falling into doubt or black and white, this, that thinking. So coming back to the heart knowing again and again. Fantastic. The 11th archetype is the weaver, dreamer, Hopi, spider woman, the Arachne, the star goddess, the spider, Ariadne. These are goddesses cross-culturally throughout time that have to do with weaving and dreaming awake. If you are a weaver dreamer archetype, you're super connected. You are a great networker. You see synchronicities everywhere all the time, and you just are tuned in to this mystical, magical frequency. The weaver dreamers can see who needs to meet who right away. You're listening like that in that web of connection, and you're dreaming awake as a lucid player in this collective dream. Very empowering place to live. Are you resonating? You also might be caught in the shadow of ungroundedness, spaciness, or too much information from the symbolic universe. So weaver dreamers can really use daily grounding. The 12th archetype is the archetype of the Queen of Death. And you might say, why would I want to embody that archetype as a woman? Don't be fooled. Our culture has taught us to fear death. Death is about change and transformation, constant little deaths within life, letting go, trusting. As a queen of death, you are an adept at letting go, trusting, and seeing beyond the veil of appearances, of betrayals, and knowing that life always has your back. As a queen of death, you are an adept at walking in peace in this world of appearances, not getting too caught up. And I know some very powerful, wise women who are embodying this archetype. The danger or the shadow of this archetype is the darker faces and phases of love, sorrow, depression, stagnation, like the fallow field. As a Queen of Death archetype, we are constantly renewing and trusting the phoenix rising from the ash again and again. And lastly, the 13th archetype of woman, by this light of these divine feminine archetypes, is the alchemical goddess. She's the full rainbow light body expression of ecstasy. This is your yogini, your adept at being changing woman, butterfly woman, ready to transform and utilize everything like the peacock who can eat the poison and grow even more beautiful feathers. So the alchemical goddess is a shapeshifter, and she is all about freedom. The shadow of the alchemical goddess is that we could be a little elusive, not of this world. Like, I think of material girl, it's more like ethereal girl, like the alchemical goddess. So you can feel if that's you. Too much shape-shifting and needing to just ground and be present, stay with the mundane reality enough to connect and be heart connected with others. Are you an alchemical goddess? Is that your archetype of woman? You can feel which ones really resonated and know you're not bound by just one. I always talk about maybe a triple weave of the top 3 that you can work with super consciously. I hope you enjoyed this transmission. Take your time, maybe journal on it, reflect. What is your archetype of woman? And know that you are loved.